Fellow citizens, today is a very special day for all of us because the PNM is doing what we set out to do, which is to be an integral part of the life of Trinidad and Tobago. This event is about another where we have come out of party headquarters into the communities to meet, to stand, to share, and to be a part of what Trinidad and Tobago is. Usually we would have these celebrations at party headquarters in Tranquility Street. But in recent years, in keeping with our commitment to be an integral part of the national community, we have taken these religious and cultural celebrations out of Balizé House sometimes into the districts, and I must say, they take on a very special flavor when we come out into the districts. And in that vein, I would like to acknowledge Major Hercules, who I understand has Tobago roots, and today we are in her neighborhood sharing her work and the young people that she is mentoring here in La Horquetta. I've had the opportunity before to address gatherings of the spiritual Shelter Baptist School. Last year at Balizé House, I asked you to recognize your special place in Trinidad and Tobago and to let your voices be heard. 1 year later, this year 2014, I ask the same of you. Because every time I come to these celebrations and join with you, we all accept that tenet written by Franz Fanon, which says to ignore the past is to surrender the future. We are never going to ignore the past, but we must always recognize that those of us who are present today have a responsibility to treat with the future. Today is a very special day for me personally, because I was reminded last night by my cousin who lives halfway around the world that today is the anniversary of the passing of our grandfather. And it's also the passing of Dr. Williams, who left us on March 29, 1981. But as we reflect on where we are and where we come from, if we look at the lives of these two men and our lives, my grandfather went to school where he had to take yams, a chicken, and a basket of some fruit, and that was the payment for the teacher. But he was a very good scholar. He learned to read and write. Eric Williams came out of QRC many years later, brilliant student, but virtually had to struggle to get a scholarship to go to university. These two men had different challenges in their time. Nobody in Trinidad and Tobago today has to pay a teacher with a foul cock or 5 pounds a yam. And very few people who want to go to university can say, I cannot go because it's impossible for me to afford it. The times have changed, but the mission remains the same, and that is to protect, preserve, and work into the future. We who are present today, especially you, the practitioners of the spiritual Baptist faith, you can point more accurately to a past of recent hardship. All of us in Trinidad and Tobago can point to a past where laws had worked against us. Those of us of African ancestry can point to the laws that worked against us in slavery. Those came to an end in 1838. And those who came as indentured workers can point to the hardships and the unfair treatment of the indentured. And more recently, as recently as 1951, practitioners of the spiritual Baptist faith could point to the oppression that came your way, if only because you practice what you believe. So when you are present today, all I can ask you is not to forget the past. Not just your past, but the past of all of us. But I ask you to do that. I would also ask you not to spend all of your time fighting battles already won. But be strong in having won those battles and take on the responsibilities of today. I cannot address you today without acknowledging our father in this religion, Patriarch Elton Prescott, not Prescott, Griffith, sorry, Elton Griffith. Elton Prescott is an independent senator, Elton Griffith. And those of his kind who have done their part. And you who are present today, what are you called upon to do today? You're not called upon to fight for freedom to practice your religion. You have that. You're not called upon to defend yourself against oppressors who don't appreciate your presence. You're appreciated. You're an integral part of a modern society which is striving to become a developed nation. So what are you called upon to do? You're called upon to be part of what we are doing today for the future. What is that? One of the most important things in front of us today is the discussion of what kind of constitution we live under. Because there are attempts by the government and persons outside of the government to change our constitution. That might be a good thing. It might even be a bad thing. Do you know? Are you aware that the nation is engaged in an exercise which could result in major changes to the Constitution? Or is it that you are satisfied only to celebrate the victory of 1951? I say to you, you must remember 1951. You must celebrate that victory, but you must also pay attention to what is happening in 2014. And if there's a point of view in the country that changes to a constitution, whether it's to make a new constitution or to amend the constitution, especially if it is to make a new constitution, such an exercise should come up from below, from the people, from the grassroots. And if that is true, then you can't get more grassroots than the shout of spiritual Baptist in Trinidad and Tobago. And if we approach any interference with our constitution against the background that the grassroots must understand it, must accept it, and must support it, then a question put to you, the spiritual Baptist, South Baptist, should bring an answer. Are you a part of this process? Are you aware of the changes? Have you given your stamp of authority for it? Or are you going to let it happen because somebody else would have done it? And it's against that background that today I'm asking you not to buy another hymnal. I guess you know all the Sankeys already by heart. I'm asking you not only to read the text of your religion, but because you are so integral, and you, more than anybody else, understand what a change of law could mean to lives. Take up your responsibility. And at the level of your leadership, Read the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago as it exists today. Familiarize yourself with its contents. Because I have discovered that most persons in this country can speak about the Constitution and talk about my constitutional rights, not knowing exactly what those rights are and what the term means. But you know it's something good, something important. And I have some rights there, don't interfere with them. But I'm asking you, because of your very special history, the strength of your community, and the respect of your voices, that in this period where we are, whether we're willing or not, whether we support or not, where we as a people are engaged with interfering with our Constitution, that you, this group of people, with your very special history and your roots in this country, that you become familiar with the contents of our Constitution and take a position on whether you want a new one or whether there are changes to be made to the one that you have. Don't wait until it is changed by others and then complain that you don't like what they've done. Don't wake up one morning and discover that we have a new Constitution and the time for saying yay or nay would have passed. We have had problems, we are having problems, and we will have problems in the future. But the analysis of these problems may not always be accurate. Sometimes the analyses are done against the background of other people's agenda. And sometimes a certain element of honesty is required. And sometimes you have to stand up for yourself or nobody else will stand up for you. And when you're talking about a constitution, you cannot get a more serious subject to require your personal attention. This is a PNM function in collaboration with practitioners of the spiritual baptistry. PNM's way of saying, we recognize you, we commemorate your history, we're here with you, and we are all one people. And that's why I've been raised with you today, hoping that you pay attention to what's happening around you. Have you taken part, any part at all, in the national consultation about the changes to be made? I suspect that you haven't, because I didn't see a lot of people taking part, because it was an exercise like a song that started on a sour note and has failed to win the hearts of the audience since. Have you taken part in discussing the green paper, which is going to become a white paper, which is going to go to Parliament one day, and you hear on the news that we've had changes, maybe good changes, maybe bad changes. It's not too late. This is the time when the discussion is taking place. I'm simply asking you to pay attention and take part. From the PNM platform, we are familiar with some of the changes. Some we will have no part of. Others we recommend. At the end of the day, we hope that some kind of consensus will be arrived at after proper national discussion, if there are to be any significant changes to our Constitution. As I lead the PNM today, it is my view that our Constitution is not as bad as some people are making it out to be. I'm of the view, as I lead the PNM, that we do not need a new Constitution. What we need are significant amendments to the current Constitution, amendments to advance our interests as we go forward. And those amendments to be made against the background and experience of what we have learned and how things have worked or not worked for us in the last how many years. If you agree with me, then you will accept that we need to examine what are those things that have worked well for us and what are those things that have not worked for us, and be strong enough to identify them and not be fearful of making the changes required. There are some constitutions in the world that are a whole lot older than ours, and those people still have problems, but they made amendments along the way. In some countries where there's perpetual turmoil and problems that are sometimes so far away from the solutions that people set about to have radical changes like a new constitution. I don't think that's the case in Trinidad and Tobago. And tonight, I ask you to continue to be that important element. And I'm going to go as far as say the voices of reason that could bring temperance to this troubled land of Trinidad and Tobago. There are changes to be made. One of the changes that will be made, I said to a PNM gathering 2 or 3 weeks ago, that the next PNM government will abolish the Ministry of Local Government. What does that mean? It does not mean that the services provided by local government now will disappear. It means that they'll be provided in a different way. It means that there will be, and I welcome Richard, welcome. It means that they'll be provided in a different way, by a different arrangement, a different administrative arrangement. It means that we will put the allocations for local government in the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance will make those allocations available to the corporations, the cities, and the boroughs, with no middleman in between. So the middleman bureaucracy which exists now, which allows the ministry and the minister to ride roughshod or to interfere with the progress of corporations, if only because the current arrangement has a minister and a ministry in there. We remove that. And that's against another commitment, that there'll be fewer ministers in the cabinet, starting with the loss of the Minister of Local Government. And when that happens, greater responsibility will fall on you here in Horquetta and elsewhere. Because you now will be given more responsibility for your own resources. You'll be given more staff. You'll be given more technical skills. And if you are having issues in your neighborhood, the solutions will lie with how you treat those issues on the ground. So that you don't come to Port of Spain and tell the minister that your drain's not clean, that the mosquitoes getting fatter in Horquetta. You would be responsible for it. And the corporation here will elect people and have an executive who will hold accountable for that. That is called devolution. And if your councillors don't function, then you vote them out of office. And if they function well, then you keep them in office. That will be your responsibility. You don't need me in Port of Spain to do that. That's where we're going. And your school districts, your corporations will become school districts. And you at the corporation level would be required to make sure that your schools are places where children go and a certain environment of learning exists there. Clean, healthy, warm, and welcoming. And the behavior of children in those schools will be the responsibility of you, the patriarchs, you, the matriarchs, and you, the members in the community, because you know those children and you'll interact with them. You interact with them. And the corporation will have responsibility for their safety and security along with the police in the district. And you don't pass indiscipline to St. Clair for somebody from St. Clair to tell you what should happen to a student who is misbehaving in Horquetta. And there'll be a school board in each school. And you members and others like you would serve from time to time on that school board, and you'll bring to bear your influence on what you would like the school to do for your children and what your children would like to grow. And then children will stop passing through school. They will go to school to be schooled. And in all of that, there'll be a discussion as to what is the role of the government in your lives. Because we have come a long way from my grandfather's time to Eric Williams' time to my time. And so much progress has happened to us during that time that many of our generations in there have come to believe that the government is responsible for lives. We have to determine the role of the government in your lives and the role of the father and the mother and the brother and the sister in your lives. And when that conversation takes place, responsibility at the individual level will grow, because you'll discover that you have some responsibility for what happens to you, and that the government is not responsible for all of your life. And when you identify what the government is responsible for, then you could hold the government properly responsible and accountable for those things. Not everything. But then the government will understand what you are responsible for and will hold you responsible for those things. And one of those things that the government will hold you responsible for is raising your children properly in your house. So these are the kinds of changes that the future holds. And this is why I'm saying to you, let us not keep on fighting battles already won, but let us gird our loins to fight the battles that are ahead of us, because the battles are always there to be fought. My grandfather can't do anything else for me, but what he did for me serves me in good stead today. Eric Williams can't do any more for us, but what he built for us, this PNM, will serve us for decades to come. And what the ancestors did for you, the spiritual Baptist practitioners, when they were made to feel ashamed of their religion, when they were made to hide to be what they wanted to be, they fought those battles for you. You stand up proud today and look as beautiful as you are, especially when you dress like this. And I ask you every year, why don't you women dress like this all the time? Why have to wait a whole year, every year, to see how beautiful you women look in such fantastic outfits? Do it more often. Do it more often. Be proud of it. So tonight, I want to join with you in celebrating this yet another anniversary, acknowledging on behalf of the party, its executive officers, all our members and supporters, and the wider Trinidad and Tobago, where we share each other's faith. This is the country where Christmas, Diwali, Eid, Spiritual Baptist Day belongs to all of us, and we all look forward to the long weekend. It's our thing. So tonight, I say blessings to you all, and I thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed upon me. Thank you.